Coming to you live from the Business Radio X studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Ready to revolutionize your franchise with AI? Franchise Now empowers franchises with advanced AI solutions, automatic processes, and enhanced marketing strategies. From personalized customer interactions to predictive analytics, we help you harness AI to drive growth and efficiency. Transform your franchise with the power of AI. Visit Franchise Now to learn more and take your business into the future. Now, here's your host.
Welcome back, everybody, to Franchise Marketing Radio. I'm your host, Rob Ganley. We're the podcast that dives into the world of franchising to bring you the latest insights, success stories, and business strategies from those in the industry. And of course, today is no different. I'm thrilled to have with me Casey Ridley. He's the founder and president of the Designery. It's a brand under the Homefront's brands platform company. We'll talk about that too. But Casey brings a unique blend of entrepreneurial spirit and strategic leadership to the home design industry, transforming spaces, elevating the customer experience. Casey, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Rob, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So obviously, as we get started in these conversations, I always like to level set and start from the beginning. And it's kind of an interesting journey, your entrepreneurial journey. And there's a little bit of a twist as you came in and got involved with Homefront Brands. So I want to talk about that. So tell us a little bit of how this came to be, your current role with Homefront and with the Designery.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rob. So I'll try not to go off in a tangent, but I can do so. So feel free to let me know. But
I'll reel you in. I'll reel you in.
Good. So during school, I was at the University of Georgia. So I'm a big Dogs fan for any SEC football fans out there. But I was at the University of Georgia and I was a pre-med student, actually. And I quickly figured out during chemistry that it was just not for me. And so I switched like a lot of people do at that time. And I dove into business and I realized that I just had a passion for business. I really had a passion for entrepreneurship and I just loved it. I just fell in love, with it, so deeply. And so throughout college, I was a part of several startups. I'd consider myself a little bit of an inventor at times. And so I had a few different patents that I developed and it was an incredible time. And I graduated college knowing that, the corporate life wasn't for me. I really wanted to harness the financial freedom that entrepreneurship can give you. And so similarly, my uncle at the time, who had started a salvage company, was ready to retire, ready to hang it up. And he had a salvage company that kind of started as a hobby and grew a little bit more to where, maybe it was worth to do something with it and rather than just shut it down. And so I looked at that and I realized it had a really good foundation. It was solid. And it just didn't quite have the same model that I envisioned, but the foundation was good. And so I said, you know what, let me buy this company from you and let me take a whirl with this entrepreneurship journey. And so I did that. And at the time, it was considered a one kitchen and bath. And so I recognized that cabinets was really our bread and butter. It's really what we made the most money on. And it's what we sold the most of. And we had good contractor relationships at the time. And so I said, you know what, we need to dive deeper into that. And we need to continue investing into that part of the model and centering that around our everything that we do. So I did that. And long story short, we, became who we are today. And so with a little bit of time and a little bit of growth, we went to a second location and second location was going really well. And then that was the pivotal moment that I came across the world of franchising. And I said, you know what? This is the greatest growth engine that I've ever seen in the world of business. And so I said, how can I be a part of that? And I'm sure we can go in a little more detail of exactly how that came to be. But that was kind of the journey and the starting point of what is now the Designery.
Yeah, I do think it's important. I love the way you framed that last part. And I want my son to listen to this because he's a senior. He went through the organic chem nightmare. But he did pretty well. I'm so happy that he just persevered, but that's not his thing, right? So he's going to finish strong and all that. He's an athlete too. And, but I'm like, he's like you. He's focused on internet businesses. Of course, a lot of it has to do with me, But the
Yeah.
reality is, yeah, I could tell it's just not in him to do that journey. I said, well, you can learn from others though, and really, regardless, you'll have a journey. But I know that's his path, however that looks. But he said you sound like him when you were a coach. But anyway, but you also framed franchising as a growth engine. And I think that's the innovation of it, like the idea of it. I think it gets lost sometimes in this sort of vanilla idea of McDonald's and whatever you think of if you think of a franchise, a chain. And it's so much more than that. It's for me, it unlocks entrepreneurship in a big way. It allows you, being the lead sort of visionary, to have a way to share that vision and with others that have the abilities, want to do it, but maybe feel the pressure of trying to do it on their own, right? And so you have this combination, and it allows for this massive growth without, for you, like I said, the only other path is let me finance more growth, right? And do it myself. And then you hire, and to me, the culture isn't the same. It's not a culture of business owners and entrepreneurs. And that's what creates the innovation in franchising. And we're going to talk about that. So, okay, so now you're called the Designery. Tell us a little bit about the rebrand that you went through and sort of strategically what prompted that and how it's now impacting things.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I came across the world of franchising and I just kind of realized, okay, this was the path I wanted to go down, I sat back and I reflected, even though the A1 Kitchen and Bath name had a place in my heart, right? It was kind of how we started, and the local market knew us by that. I sat back, I self-reflected, and I looked across, every city in the country, and I said, okay, if this is going to be 100, 200, 300 locations, and we're going to be in every major city across the US and all the suburbs, is A1 Kitchen and Bath really the name? And I realized, it's not, right? It's not the name. And so at that point, I said, okay, we need to look at what name we could rebrand to that has an elevated feel to it and also is catchy, right? Like, you look at all the giants in the industry, you look at Apple, you look at Amazon, you look at, whatever it may be, they've created a brand and they create a name around it. And so I said, okay, how do we do that? And so ultimately we set across this goal of rebranding, but we didn't want to just pull up on a chalkboard and write something down, right? We wanted to really, gather it from the market and really see and harness the knowledge of the collective whole. And so we actually crowdsourced thousands of ideas from people across the country. If you look at cabinets, you look at flooring, you look at tile, what name embodies those things? You look at kitchens, you look at baths, what name would resonate with you? And we crowdsourced thousands of names. And then we went through that list, which was exhaustive. And we narrowed it down to a select few. And then from there, we made some different iterations, continued our crowdsourcing journey. And then finally, we landed on the Designery. And I tell you, Rob, it has had massive impacts. Everyone has come saying how it resonates with them. It does spark a deeper connection with them. And that's a lot of what we ask for, right? Is we want to invoke an emotional response to the name, right? We want it to have a feeling of warmth and creativity and future for the consumer and their home, as well as the franchise owner and the ability of what they're growing. And so, I think we landed on a good name, and I won't take all the credit. It was definitely the nation's help there, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a brilliant idea. So, okay, let me just, first of all, when I see G for Georgia Bulldog, I see a bulldog. I don't see a G.
Yep.
But yeah. But, branding is so important, like being strategic about it. You can back into the brand name, like A1, it becomes what you are, what you embody, what your principles are about, your values. But if you know that already, or you want to make sure that that's reflected properly, you kind of need to have that ability to start fresh, like you did. And I immediately resonated when I see Designery. I think of, and I'm not this person, okay, but I was married once, and and I know what it's like to build a house out and design or redesign rooms. And I would say the kitchen and the bathrooms are some of the most important and creative rooms, right? So and a lot of people put a lot of creativity into it, and and they love to talk about it and share it, and it is like an art of work. So like, or an artwork. So designer is the right word. And I think that's why it resonates, because people want it to matter, right? And they want to take the time to create a custom feel to it. So cool. No, right. And then now we're going to talk more about that. So it's all right. You start with this concept of what does it mean to you when you go through this experience, right? But then you guys build a business model around that experience or that concept to further. It's just about a name. It's also about now the experience they go through when they work with you, right? This Designery idea. So I want to talk about that because I know that's a big part. So tell me a little bit about the brand. What makes you unique in the marketplace?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We have definitely several different differentiators. And let's start with quality. It's obviously a very important thing, right? You mentioned it, that there's a lot of creativity and importance in those areas of your home. And, we kind of say that, the kitchen is the heart of your home, right? I mean, it is where you spend the most time, and you also gather people, you spend holidays. There's a lot of important moments there, feeding your children, throughout the years and so on. So quality is important because you want to have something functional. You want to have something that, works very well. And so we actually take, we take a little bit different approach of it than pretty much anyone in the marketplace. And we tie together the benefits that factories can provide and also what custom cabinetry can provide. And so we do that by taking, important things like all plywood, so all wood cabinetry, dovetail drawers, soft close doors and drawers. So all the important kind of lingo that you'll see in the industry. And then we tie that with the way we build cabinets. So we actually build all of our cabinets centrally. We have a big facility, and we bring all of our product in. We build everything for the franchise owner and for the consumer. And we ship it all out either to the location or to the customer's home. And it's a really important aspect of quality because a lot of people out there, your big box stores or small places, they either lack in the quality or they just give it to the consumer in pieces and say, figure it out, which is, how a lot of the big box stores do. And I won't say any names, but, we saw that as a problem.
Okay.
Well, I've had my fair share of IKEA projects with my wife, so.
Me too.
So we said, you know what, that's a problem. We want to solve that. And quality goes a part of all of that. So that's kind of that quality piece of it. Another thing is really that customer experience. So, when a consumer walks in, they're greeted first and foremost with a very experienced designer who can take them through the entire process. That showroom is clean. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's crisp. It's classy. Right. When we set out to kind of build out what is our showroom standard and what embodies the Designery from a physical storefront perspective, and Apple is what came to mind, right? You go into Apple, it's clean, it's crisp, it has a just elevated feel to it, right? And elegance. And so
every sense. I got to chime in. I was there. I had to wait for a restaurant, and there was an Apple store nearby. So me and my son metered over. But it was just like everything was just so pristine and elegant. I'm like, this store's a work of art. You know what I mean? It made you feel something. Anyway, keep going. Yeah, that's when I'm looking at you right now. No one can see right now, but you have this really crisp shirt, Designery on it. It's all very, very about quality. I feel that about the brand. But hey, keep going. Tell me about the experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you're 100% right. Right? It's a work of art. And so we said, okay, how can we do that with cabinetry and these bulkier items, these countertops and this flooring? Because most showrooms you walk in and it's just a clutter of 100 billion things and nothing is where it doesn't make any sense, right? And so we said, how can we create that work of art in our showrooms or our studios? And so we did that, right? We built that showroom really around that vision and that idea. And all of our showrooms now really feel that. And have that presence to them, which is incredible. But we took it a step further and said, okay, what does a customer need to experience in a Designery showroom, right? And technology is a very important aspect of it. And so every step of the way, from the way we design things to the way they look at the design and they look at the products, rather that's blueprints or elevations or, giant renderings in our giant TV in our design center. And then even a step further into virtual reality where they can actually go into the space and really walk around their kitchen to see if it's what they're envisioning in real life. Because, we all know it's hard to see something massive change like that, right? It's hard to see these new cabinets and this new flooring in this space until it's done, right? But with technology today and the designer's, vision of technology and how we can incorporate it into our experience, we have allowed customers to now see that vision up front before they make their purchase, which is an incredible aspect, and something that really sets us apart in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure we drill in a little bit. Like I got a little off sidetracked when I talked to your other brand about the drones and the windows.
Yep.
But the virtual reality, I think there's a lot to be said there. One is everything you said, right? Is you kind of can see it better because you can see it. But I also feel like it goes right back to this idea of designery, this idea of experience, this idea of creativity, because when you can render things in real time, you can also like, well, what about if that were blue? What about if that were this? Or what about if I had 3 there instead of 2? And you can rapid fire through ideas and it elevates your creativity. So it's just another realm. And I remember when that tech came out, like, I think Apple, announced that some of that capability, we could look at things and do a lens and see things inside your own home. You guys are kind of applying it inside your showrooms and things, but amazing. Yeah. I think the ability to see, I think it's an elevated level of creativity though. Not just like, okay, let's talk about it. Okay. Now you want to see it? Okay. Yeah. But but you can refine it. You can keep going. And I talk about AI that way. When you conversate with it, you can be creative. You can keep going back and forth. It's not a do this and get something back. Right. So anyway, I think that's another level of it. So anyway, cool. So that is a huge difference. Are you finding that many places are starting to think about these things, or are you guys still kind of way out in front when it comes to that virtual reality type of experience?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies in the industry that are trying to figure out what does technology mean to them and their consumer and how do they weave it into their process. And I think that there's an identity there that companies are just figuring it out. What is their identity with that? And I think people are trying to incorporate it more and more, but they aren't quite there yet. So, I think we are definitely quite a few steps ahead. And we constantly are looking even further than that, right? How do we continue investing in our R&D areas and stay in front? I'm a firm believer. Like, I want everyone in the industry. I want the consumer and the homeowner to really get what they need and what they want in their home. And if other companies can utilize technology to do that, then that's great, because I do think there's a problem in the industry where contractors or companies or small mom and pops or big box stores, like, they take advantage of the consumer and that consumer's, ignorance to, remodeling a kitchen. Because, if you've never done it before, you don't know what to do. You don't know all the details that go into it. You don't know where to put fillers or where you should or shouldn't put this, or what should be symmetric and what doesn't matter. And so if you don't know those things, and the big box store or even the small company, they just want to make the sale, right? They want to get that money in. The contractor wants to get that money in to pay off another bill or whatever it may be. And so the consumer is taken advantage of, right? And so with the Designery, we want to make sure that we provide as many tools and resources to the consumer that's possible so they can make a well-educated decision. And in turn, the revenue, the growth of the company, all of that just comes with it, right? Because now the consumer sees that as part of our experience and they believe in it too. And that validity and that trust and that growth provides referrals, provides, all sorts of good reviews and all sorts of things that helps grow the business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I often say that, like, this is Franchise Marketing Radio, so we do talk about marketing sometimes. But we're talking about the idea of marketing, the idea of franchises too. But I often joke that, I could talk for the entire time, and once we the product, we talk about the product, the experience, that's the marketing. because like, if you do that so well, then the repeat business, the referral business, the size of the business, the add-on business, just takes care of itself. And these are the metrics. I just kind of rattled them off, but much easier to focus on those areas hey, how can we get a little bit more out of the customer, but do it right in a way that's serving them better, right? You feel like it's just a better solution. Hey, if I got to spend an extra 5,000, but I'm going to 10 times half the next 20 years, hey, that's more than a good idea. So like that sounds great. So let's dive in a little bit to the connection with the platform company. I did mention a couple times. Tell me a little bit about how that connection with some of the other brands, kind of augments what you do, and a little bit. Well, let's start with that. How are your franchisees aware of those other brands and maybe ways they can work together? Like, how's that looking for you? How do you factor that in, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So, let me start out with saying that business ownership is hard, right? That's why people go into franchising, is for an opportunity to do something with a little bit of help and guidance from other people who've done it before, right? And it's a hard thing. Well, creating a franchise company is no different. Like, it's hard, right? You have a lot of responsibility to your franchisees to do right by them, give them the right kind of support that's necessary. And it is just hard to become a franchisor responsibly to a certain level, right? With Homefront and that partnership, and what that allows is it allows us to do that more responsibly by working together. So we're bringing multiple brands together under the same umbrella, which then allows us to share resources, technology, softwares, ideas, experience. And you mentioned the drones that another company is doing, right? Is there applications there with other businesses? Maybe, maybe not, but it is still a way of working together. Our CRM is all the same. So we can share data and we can cross market and understand the industries more, right? So if we're opening up a location in, let's say, New York, but we already have 3 other brands in New York, right? Well, now we can use all of that data to understand the market to then better place the Designery in a better place with better consumers and market to them better and more effectively and faster, right? Because that's what franchising is the pour the gasoline on the fire to really help it grow faster and bigger.
Which, by the way, I love that you said that. But that, and you don't think of it that way when you say just click scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is scaling itself is a art and science. Like, you got to know when it's the right time, how to do it properly, and you have to have operations figured out a certain way, and everything else impacted a certain way to be able to do it right. So I just wanted to point out, because I know you guys are good at that. Your brands are all scaling. So, all right, keep going. So you're saying, all right,
Yeah.
so the common CRM, which again, I picked up on that on some of my other conversations, but I think is amazing that you guys are tying the brands together with common technology. So you can be positioned, right, to leverage things. Yeah, but keep going. I don't mean to interrupt there.
No, you're fine. I mean, you're 100% right? That data, that sharing is extremely important to the growth of all the brands, right? And it allows you to benchmark each other across the platform. So then we can just all grow and make better decisions together. I think one of the biggest advantages, though, of the platform to the franchise owner's perspective is the ability to really grow their portfolio, right? And so we have a franchise owner, for example, who is a Designery owner, but also an owner of Window Hero, which is the drone company that you had mentioned, cleaning windows, as well as Yard Patrol Pros, which is more of a pest control company as well. So, we have one owner who owns all 3 companies in the same market of Charleston, South Carolina, and he's just doing amazing, right? He's able to share resources across his enterprise, and he creates his own little umbrella or platform, if you will, in his local market. And so it gives the owner an ability to grow bigger than that single company, right? Because now they can look at the same platform across the different companies, but it's easier because it's all the same software. It's all the same, people, it's all the same things. And so they're able to really grab these different, things and plug and play it in their market. And the big difference is really what's just being sold, right? The back end's all very similar, all the same. And it's just what's being sold to the consumer is kind of what changes and the differentiating part.
I think I love it. I mean, as you talk, everybody explains it a little differently and comes from a different angle. But I think of like franchising. It's like franchising 2.0 platform companies. It's like we can take this thing to a whole nother stratosphere, right? But I just love that it's still about a network of small business owners. But we're scaling it. We're making it so small business owners can be a little bigger. And also, I think for me, like, it would be diversification, right? Like, that's kind of fun. Like, I think franchisees want to do that. Like, let's bring in a new angle that really helps add value, and or operationally it adds value on the back end, and it's just fun to build that and see that work. And so it's just, if you like business
Mhm.
and you like others, it seems like it would be great to have choices like that.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So I want to talk to you. I'm looking at you right now. No one can see this right now. Although I do want to move it to a YouTube format too. You're a young guy. You're a young guy. You're not that
Mhm.
old, and you did some amazing things, right? So I wanted to ask you about your leadership philosophy a little bit. And so what are your principles? Is there something you point to that helps you make decisions? Like you say, I got to make decisions about things, because as a leader, you got to make decisions regularly that are fairly
Mhm.
impactful.
Mhm.
What is that process for you? What would you share with other leaders? Obviously, you're doing well. You've made some good decisions. What goes into that for you?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I think every day, right, you're tasked with making decisions that impact not only your life and your family's life, but the lives of hundreds and thousands of people across the globe now that rely on you and rely on your leadership. And so it's something that should not be taken lightly. And some people do, right? And so that's, kind of the trick, is that you have to always, in every decision, make sure that you're grounded by something. And so and decisions are hard, right? There's a lot of hard decisions that you're going to have to make in business ownership and franchising. And as you grow and scale your business and your career, like, there's hard decisions to be made. And so mine are always bound in two things, right? One, it's morals, right? What is the right thing to do? Even if it's not the easy thing, right? Sometimes it's making an investment that you don't necessarily, love to make, but it's the right thing to do, right? By your franchise owners or by your consumer or whatever it may be, but you have to be bound in those morals. And then the second thing is numbers, right? Every good business owner is just driven by numbers. You have to know your KPIs. You have to look at that as you make decisions. And when you really focus on those two things, the noise and the emotion around things just kind of fall off to the wayside, right? Because now you're guided by a strong principle that you can hold deep and you can always come back to. Um, and we have values at Homefront that all of our brands have. So the Designery has these values, and it's called CARES, right? And those two things, numbers and a strong moral code, kind of goes into that CARES, which is community, accountability, responsibility, excellence, and service, right? Um, and so when you do that and you embody those values, you embody the numbers, the morals, the excellence, then it just really sets you apart from the marketplace in a really strong way.
Wow, I'm telling you, man, I'm really impressed. I did talk about the dashboard. The one dashboard that rules them all is what was said.
Mhm.
But that's me too. Like, I've always been, what was cool about like my experience in becoming a technology consultant and a MarTech consultant is probably the closest framing, is because I love the measurability of digital marketing. Like, you could look at numbers and see, all right, I have to, if that number gets to that, then this number over here will be that. It's very predictable. And that feeling. And then, but I always realized how hard it was. You had to build models, and you had to start with the end in mind when it came to the dashboard, because
Mhm.
technologically, not always that easy when you're balancing all these different technologies, which is one of the integration of your CRMs is an important step to have this dashboard be what it is. But yeah, you can't make great decisions without numbers, though. That's the point. Like, I remember I taught my kids a lesson once, and I had heard it from someone else, so it's not me, but like, we were talking about Starbucks, and he just wanted to go to Starbucks all the time, like twice a day. And like, it's like $20 a time. I'm like, do you know how much this is per year? Like, what's that number? And it looks
Yep.
very different when you say, do I really want to spend, $2,782 on coffee? You could say, well, maybe not. I could probably cut that back. So numbers, basic math can really give you clarity about making decisions and what matters the most. So I really think, when you get a franchise, you think that through, you already know it. You come in as a franchisee and you don't have to think that yet. And then as you learn, you're like, wow, I'm so glad they thought of that ahead of time. So,
Mhm.
all right. So back to the franchise experience then. Um, I'm just getting this vibe from the Designery that you guys are all about quality, precision, And that wouldn't be any different than for when you onboard your franchisee and train them and get them ramped up that first year. So tell me a little bit about that journey. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, when a franchise owner, comes on board and they enter into the onboarding stages, if you will, it's a very intense process, right? There's a lot to do. There's a lot of, moving parts. And so we have to bring it all down and ground it in a certain area. So we have a checklist that's kind of that end all be all where everything goes into it. Every task that has to be created, we organize it by week to week to make it really easy for the franchise owner to really go through and dive into that process. During that process, though, it's also very heavy on training, right? It's very important for them to know as much as possible about the Designery. They have to know what we do, why we do it, where we do it, the product quality, the price differentiators, everything about us. And so we have a really strong learning management system where they go online and can learn everything about the Designery. Then they also complement that by coming to our in-person training, which is a very intense crash course for several days. People need a long, good night's sleep afterwards because we work hard, right? We really want to train well and then start well and then go well, right? Like those are kind of the 3 stages. And so that onboarding process has all of those things in it, right? So learning, real life practice, and then of course the simple things like getting your entity set up and tax certificates and all of those things that you have to do to be a business owner. And sometimes people forget. So we organize it, and it's a pretty good crash course. And the whole purpose behind it is to get your showroom doors open to the public, selling, creating relationships with builders and contractors, as well as the public, and then have a successful business after that. So it's really important that they follow that checklist and kind of go through that in detail. And there will be times that it's hard, right? There will be times that it's challenging. And that's what we're there for, is to really help guide you through that.
Yeah. Your problem solving is an interesting thing. Someone brought this up on a recent interview, and I feel like, the way it was framed, and this was a franchisee, very successful one, okay? Many brands too. Mm-hmm. So back to what you were saying about platform companies, I think it's a great thing for franchisees. But the framing was that when you get into a franchise, yes, there's systems and process of thinking through things, and obviously it's evolutionary. It doesn't just stay static. Mm-hmm. But problem solving it's more that you're not going to not have problems. You'll have problems, but it's the ability to solve them at a rate and at a pace where you could still be in business and be successful. Because there is no such thing as this, you kind of just flip a few switches. I mean, I guess if you just passively invest, and, that would be a different thing, and people do that. But this isn't what franchising is. It's running a business. So eventually you're not in it, but, it is a working business. And so, but you're going to have these problems. It's more about the fact that you have this network around you, a team around you, and smart guys like you that, I make decisions all the time. I solve problems all the time. I will help you with that. And once you learn that you can solve almost any problem, mm-hmm. you don't have the fear of a problem. And if you don't have fear, that's going to help you as an entrepreneur, because you got to kind of be fearless in a way, unless you stay sort of in one level. And most entrepreneurs have this, like you. I know that someday you'll have a platform, you'll have like 100 brands or something, because you have that desire to keep going, like I want to keep impacting. And that there's that, and if you don't have that fear, if you have that confidence to know, we'll figure it out, we'll solve it as we go. Because you've done it. You've done that before. And that is probably the most important thing about a franchise. Mm-hmm. Not perfection, that you don't have to, hey man, I didn't have to really, no resistance. No, it's the ability to do it. Without it, as I always say, good luck. Mm-hmm. Starting a business like you did, or I did some of the internet stuff, there is no, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what to ask, and you don't even know what to compare it to. So to me, those were the things that were most challenging to me. It wasn't the specifics, right? And so, mm-hmm. Good stuff on that. So, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I just wanted to add in there, Rob. I think you make a very good point that in business, there's always going to be problems. And I think too many people think that rather they're starting a business on their own or franchising or whatever it may be, they think that, problems may not arise, or they underestimate problems, right? No matter how sophisticated the organization, like problems will come up. And what is the key differentiator of a good organization or a good franchise owner is persistence, right? The ability to push through, right? There's a lot of good quotes that say, if, you only fail when you stop getting up, right? Life's going to kick you down and you just got to keep going and push through. And that really is business. That's, business entrepreneurship, and that's franchising is, no one's perfect. And, people are going to make mistakes, or problems are going to come up, or things that are completely out of our control. And it's all about having the persistence and, like you said, smart people around you who can just help solve any problem. And when you have that, then I'll say the success rate is much, much, much higher, right?
It is much, much, much. Right. We could all say that 3 or 4 times. Exactly. And I think that's why we love the industry. All right. So with your future, right? Yeah, this amazing brand, by the way. I think it's great. What in your view, in your vision, what would be the ideal circumstance 5 or 10 years out for you, for Designery?
So it's a great question. We have a really bold vision for the Designery, and I'll say it's a national brand, which it is that now, but it's a step further of that, right? It's the household name for kitchens, baths, and closets. It is what, major TV networks are calling because they want us to sponsor, their TV show or whatever it may be. We're releasing a yearly paint color for cabinetry that is, followed in trend setting. And so if we have that vision and that goal for 5-10 years down the road, then everything we do now should complement that, right? So our social media pages, our web pages, all of those things should reflect that national vision that we want to build. And same thing with our footprint, right? 200, 300 locations across the globe, everyone aligned on this national presence to be this powerhouse in the kitchen and bath and closet space. If we do that and we are aligned on that vision, then there's just no doubt of us reaching it, quite frankly. So, it's a bold future. It's a bold vision, and we're really excited. We've come a long way in a short period of time, and we've got a lot still to go. And we're excited for the growth that we've had and that we're continuing to have. But we're definitely aligned on that goal there of where we want to be and what the Designery means to the world, for that matter.
Yeah, I love that answer, man. Great. I mean, fantastic. And let me ask you your thoughts. A lot of what you just said, part of it anyway, was we're going to be that, what we're saying we're going to be. We are that. We're embodying that. It sounds like you're that now. Mm-hmm. And in other words, how important is it to reflect the thing you want to be? I think I heard that in you and what you were saying. So we want to be on social media what we're saying we want to be 5 or 10 years from now. Tell me, what unpack that a little bit. Like, I think there's some intent behind some of that.
It's really funny you say that, because I'm a big motivation guy, right? I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love to be motivated by other incredible people in the world. And, Steve Harvey said on a show one time, he said, the best advice I could give to a young person who wants to be something in life is to go buy a plane ticket and buy a first class ticket. And when you go buy that first class ticket, enjoy it. Wherever you're going, enjoy it. Get that glass of wine, get a snack, enjoy that first class experience. And then the next time you're going to go back and you're going to sit in the back of the plane, right? And you are going to walk past that first class seat, and you are going to realize something's going to click in your brain that everything that you want to do is to get back to that first class, to have the ability to do that by building something greater with yourself. And you have to, be that, right? You can't just say, I want to be the person that can sit in first class. What are those people doing? Well, it's waking up early. It's taking risk. It's staying up late. It's going the extra mile. It's, being driven by something greater than, just money. It's being driven by morals, and it's being driven by, solving a problem or whatever it may be. So, if you can, see those habits and see that, you look at, New York, skyscrapers, and you look at a really nice building and a not so nice building, right? 5 a.m., those lights are open or are on in that really nice building. And it's because all those people are up building themselves, reading, pouring into their brain, and it never stops. And so if you want to have a bold vision for yourself, for your future, for your company, you're right. You have to act in that way. So if you want to be a national brand, or you want to be a trendsetter, what do those trendsetters now do to get there? Or what are they doing in general, right? It's newsletters, it's good social media posts, it's saying this is the yearly trend. Even if no one looks at it, year one, I'm sure Sherwin-Williams, no one looked at their paint color of the year.
Yeah.
Year one, I'm sure it took 10 years to get there, right? But they started it at some point. And so you got to do that. And like you said, you've just got to remember where you want to be and act in that way now.
I love that, man. I've heard that many times in many ways, and I've experienced that for myself. It's a hard game to play, but I would say between the ears, that is the game. That is the hardest part. And that's, I think, what makes franchising work so well. And I think it would work better for everybody if they realize how powerful having that is. Like if you have that ability to get through those moments of doubt and maintain that confidence and maintain that even when you don't feel like it's happening, walking the way you want to be, the way you expect to be. And that I think franchising enables a lot better than a lot of things. I can't really think of many things, but you do want to kind of, as a franchisee, embody that, embrace that, expect I can solve problems, walk like the top franchisee when you just get started. So that's really good advice. But as we wrap up, you said you have read some books and things. And I asked you earlier about your decision making and how you approach that. Is there any advice you might leave with anyone that's thinking about maybe, I always like to hear how you would talk to another guy like you, because if you didn't do what you did with A1, then we wouldn't be talking. So like, what advice do you have for those guys that run awesome businesses in local markets? And we know there are a lot of awesome businesses in local markets. What's your advice about franchising?
Well, the simple advice is do it, right? I tell you that, when you look at your future and, one of my favorite quotes, and this is, not necessarily to someone else that already owns a business, but just to the regular person out there who, is in a corporate career. If I graduated college and I could have taken the safe route, I could have taken a comfy salary in a nice, building in a nice city, and I could have been comfortable, right? And the biggest, detriment to your success is a high paying salary, because you get comfy and you don't want to leave it. You don't want to leave that salary. But at the end of the day, you don't have your own time, right? You're not able to go to your school or your kids' field trip at school. You're not able to, travel to that country that you've really always wanted to go to with your, husband or wife on, your anniversary. And so if you, realize that, and you want to get to a certain point, risk is going to come out, part of it. And you've got to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I am going to bet on myself, right? I'm not going to bet on this corporate company I'm a part of. I'm not going to bet on someone else. I'm going to bet on myself to, get out there and build something greater and be a better person to myself, to my family, to my loved ones around me, or whoever it is. And you've got to be able to say that and do it, right? If you don't feel like you can bet on yourself, then franchising is not for you, right? Business is not for you, and, be an order taker. But if you have confidence in yourself and you want to do something greater, then you just got to take that bet on yourself. And I think franchising is a great way to do that, especially as a new entrepreneur, to be able to take an existing brand and existing values and be able to embody that with yourself in your own local market to grow further and deeper and bigger.
Wow. Yeah. No. I love what you said, because I thought of it. I started, I took the corporate route. I was in sales. I love technology. So I won't say that wasn't fun learning from some of these big companies. They were doing cool stuff. And I was like, wow, this is cool. But, it kind of got old, because of the reasons you said. And you don't have control. I think stress comes from the ability not to sort of understand, like, if I can go and affect it, I'll affect it. But when I don't have control over that effect, it's stressful. It's hard, and you find yourself sometimes in those situations when you're someone who has a heart for business ownership. It just doesn't settle right when you're working for big companies sometimes. But I was in my early 30s. And so I'd already set that pattern. You're darn right it's a trap, because it was darn hard to change such a great salary, right? Commission kind of thing. But made really good money. And it's like, it's not easy to make that kind of money as a business owner for a while. You might have to work at it for a decade. And so it was a trap. And at the end of the day, I had to take half the money for the work that I do to serve others and to make an impact and to have a little more control over the impact I'm making and to know that I can do that. So I think that's great advice to say, take that chance. You won't ever regret it. You know, even if, look, I've been through all the failures that people worry about. So I'm still alive and I'm very happy and I couldn't be better off. So, anyway, but thank you for that. I totally align with that. And I appreciate your heartfelt answers today. And I want to have you back because I want to know what other cool stuff you're going to be doing at the Designery. I know that you will be a trendsetter. You will create the idea of the new trends as well, right? So I appreciate it. And I hope you're back soon. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. Thank you.